we're going to be talking about pop art. So I chose pop art to talk about because it's an art movement that came after abstract expressionism, which is what we talked about last week. And really, the artists in pop art kind of wanted to respond to abstract expressionism, where the paintings didn't look like anything that you could really recognize. They were just sort of shapes and colors and feelings and emotions, whereas pop artists really wanted to represent the world around them. And so this movement began in the 1950s, and the artists that were involved got their ideas from popular and commercial culture. So popular culture is things including like movies and popular music that we hear on the radio, fashion trends, even magazines or fashion models, really anything that we would see on TV, here on the radio, now things that we would see on the internet, although back when it was created in the 1950s, there was no internet, but now that's definitely a place where we see a lot of popular culture. It also includes commercial culture. So these are things that people are buying. So some famous examples from sort of pop art that was created in the 50s and 60s were images of Coca-Cola or Campbell's soup, but now you could really think about commercial culture being anything that we can buy that's like mass produced. So why was pop art created? Well, it was created because young artists felt that what they were learning at art school didn't really have anything to do with what was happening in their lives. They wanted to create art that everyone could connect to, not just rich old people who were often the people who were going to museums, but that just the everyday average person would find interesting and exciting and want to look at, and that they would connect to and say like, yeah, that's something that I've seen before or reflects my life. They wanted art to be fun and exciting, and a famous quote is, "Pop art is for everyone." So I've got some examples here of some really famous pop artists. So probably the most famous pop artist of all time is Andy Warhol. And Andy Warhol was an American artist. He was quoted as saying, "Art is what you can get away with." So he really liked to push boundaries. He was the first person who kind of created these mass-produced images. He used silk screening, which is the way that we can sometimes put images on t-shirts, so it's a way that you can produce the same image over and over again. And a lot of people back then said that that wasn't art, that it wasn't fine art, it wasn't true, it didn't belong in a gallery. But Andy Warhol changed that, and so he used images of things like Campbell's soup cans, Marilyn Monroe, to create these really vibrant, interesting pieces of art that had comments about popular culture. Another really famous artist was Roy Lichtenstein. Roy Lichtenstein said, "Pop art looks out into the world. It doesn't look like a painting of something. It looks like the thing itself." So again, he's really trying to show that pop art is a part of the world. And you can see that his style of painting really kind of resembles a comic book sort of style. So really bold lines. He used these dots to show shading and color. His art was really exciting and fun. And then the last artist that we're going to look at is Roy Indiana. And Roy did a lot of sculptures, actually. So you can see here there's a sculpture of love, which I feel like I've seen ones very similar to this, maybe even seen this one in New York City. I'm not sure, actually. And Roy Indiana said that some people like to paint trees. I like to paint love. I find it more meaningful than painting trees. So again, wanting to paint or to create things that people would really interact with in the real world and that meant something to everyday people. So I'd like you to learn a little bit more about pop art by watching this video that's from the Tate, which is a museum in England. I thought it was a really good video, even though it's got kind of a younger person in it. I think it has some really great information about pop art, and it gives you a really good overview of what that movement is about. And then we have a task for the week. And the task for this week is that I want you to think about pop art and think about how it would continue to evolve. So pop art was inspired by popular culture. One of the most famous pop artists is Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol created many pieces of art using images of celebrities. He wanted to capture what was happening in popular culture, so he chose people who would be easily recognizable because their images were everywhere. Unfortunately, Andy Warhol died in 1987. If he were still alive today, I think he would be surprised by how popular culture has changed. I think he might appreciate how easily social media, like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc., have made it for anyone to create and share images. If Andy Warhol were alive in 2020, what do you think, or who do you think, he would create a portrait of? Write a paragraph to explain your choice and why you think that person represents popular culture now. So that is your task this week, to pick one person who you think Andy Warhol would create a portrait of if he were alive right now. And so this should be a person who is very recognizable. Almost anyone could look at that, a portrait of them, and know who it was. And I want you to tell me why you picked that particular person. Okay? In your OneNote folder, there's a template for this, and there's some more pictures of portraits that Andy Warhol did, just to give you some ideas. So best of luck. I'm looking forward to reading your answers and hearing your ideas. Okay, thanks. We'll talk to you next week.